Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Thor issue 29. And pretty interesting cover here. It's seeing like undead warriors and stuff. You see Thor and a Valkyrie, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And this is definitely an interesting one. We've pretty much got the new writer on Thor that we're going to be having going forward, and I'm pretty good with it. Seem to be doing a pretty interesting job. It's just there's been so many different kind of like stories that Thor's been in, like the Banner War, and it's like half in Thor's issues, half in Hulk's, and then we've got like there was a Thanos Death Notes one, but I didn't read that one. Though granted, they do a decent enough job of being like, okay, so this is how we're pretty much incorporating that stuff going forward, and it definitely starts out interesting because we are, well, I'm shown of like Odin's daughter, Lausa, yeah, who evidently is pretty much the blood of Bor and the fire of Muspelheim. And I'm like, what the hell? So I don't know that much of her and what's kind of going on with that. But hopefully I'll get caught up or whatnot with what's going on. But we see that she's pretty much snuck. She's living in like Bronxton, Oklahoma, in Little Asgard, pretty much getting up at night and reading stories and everything before Corvus Glaive pops up to pretty much kidnap her. And he knows that they'll come for him, and he takes her pretty much through the lands of Niflheim, and she accidentally drops her little stuffed animal. And then we switch over and we see that Thor has learned that his sister's been taken. He's talking with Odin, and we learn, let me see, that there's a part of Niflheim that's out of bounds that Odin's father, Bor, said was out of bounds, but he never told him why. Of course, bringing up this, like, he was not a forthcoming man, and Thor's like, I wonder what that would have been like. He's like, no, your daughter, my sister, is someplace we don't know. Corvus Glaive is retracing the steps of his late master Thanos, searching for the Black Infinity Stone, which Bor had some hand in. Let's see, and he kind of just wants to deal with this. And then, of course, Sif brings someone, and they don't have any more information on why it's out of bounds. So she suggests that Thor go to talk to someone who'd been there. Then we find ourselves in Cleveland, Ohio, with Runa as she's on a date with Michelle. And this dude is being pretty much a jerk asshole, and she lights his beard on fire. And it's like, shit! I mean, that's one way to get your point across without going Valkyrie stomp-ass style. It's just like, you gotta be careful with controlled fires. But it does get her point across of, do not fuck with me. Let's see. And of course, her date is pretty much like, I'm enjoying this whole kind of Valkyrie thing. And she, of course, brings up if she's being weirded out, and she's not. And then she asks, you think it would be weird if I called in sick tomorrow? And she's like, no, kiss me. And it's like, alright, why don't you make me? So then they kind of run out. They're pretty much having their nice, sexy kind of moment. And of course, you know, when a hero is having a nice, kind of sexy moment, that means they got to be interrupted. Well, in certain cases. So they're pretty much getting it on before the Ravens are pretty much popping up and says, your poor damn sisters are keeping me on the bloody roof. And she's like, Thor? I just love the writing with that. And of course we see that she gets up to the roof and shouts to Seer, and we see that pretty much her undead sisters are talking about wanting to eat him because they were essentially her do not disturb sign of being like, okay, so she's going on a date and wants to not be disturbed. And granted, along most lines, even Thor would probably be like, yeah, okay, but his baby sister's taken. And then there's certain kind of things I'm like, alright, cool. And evidently, we get in a little note that Runa had recently become leader of the Disseer in Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor 5. So it's like, okay, so she can control him and tell him to, like, go fuck off. And that's essentially what she does. And we see that Thor brings her kind of up to speed. We're like, I need to know about this place. And she's like, stay the hell away. And then he, of course, is like, my sister, we cannot get across, somewhere in there, we cannot cross the river, we cannot get to her. Please tell me what you know. And this is a cool thing because sometimes Thor would be very bombastic and assholishness and kind of go along the lines of Odin or Bor or other kind of kings before and just shout shit and be like, tell me what you fucking know. Here, he's just, I want to get my sister back, and he's asking for help. And he's like, just tell me. And she, of course, is like, oh no. And then her date's like, oh shit, is that Thor? So that's kind of funny. So they pretty much get to Niflheim, and she pretty much gets him up to speed. That like, I even read in the beginning that she was like trapped in like a dead celestial body or whatnot. She's like one of the oldest kind of like Valkyries or whatnot, and this kind of helps up with it, saying that she was fighting. They were fighting one of his grandfather's wars and losing. So like, hey, Bor, sorcerers, make a weapon that could like end this shit. And then it went wrong because, of course, whenever you make a super weapon, there's always going to be consequences of said super weapon because it exploded and there was an eruption of magical shit, and they couldn't, like, it ended the battle, but the sorcerers couldn't stop the eruption, so they decided to contain it in this zone and be like, hey, don't go in there, because if you go in there, you gotta get contaminated and stuff. And Thor's hearing this, but then he sees his sister's little stuffed wolf, and is like, how do we get in there? Because when you're a big brother, that's kind of what you do. Like, now granted, it's not like his sister planned this or anything. Like, granted, there are varying levels of, like, my sibling has decided to shove their fist in a light socket, screaming, I'ma do this, motherfucker, and it's gonna be awesome. Then, sometimes you just let your sibling go back and be like, alright, you kind of fucking with shit that you don't want to be fucking with. I told you not to, but alright. This, she really had no kind of choice. She's like, my sister's in there, how do we get in there? It's a dangerous kind of thing, and it really kind of, like, helps connect with me of, like, hey, I can connect with Thor being, like, kind of, like, one of the siblings that has to handle stuff for family, but then also being the kind of, like, older brother dealing with stuff. It's like, alright. So, she's like, we gotta go through the ice. I can't really prepare you for it, but, like, swim into the darkness, not the light. And they break through, and we see them talking about, like, how it's kind of affecting them. The light holds more beauty. It's very kind of calling and everything. And he sees Runa and decides to go with her. And evidently this is a land of old regrets, death, and magic. And that they tried to move out the dead, but it was just, they couldn't stay there too long. And this is just a great kind of page. And I like this kind of layout. You get a little bit of them getting in there with this little panel, but then they lead the most of it to see all the death and destruction and the crazy shit going on with whatever this weapon thing did. And then Runa pretty much gives kind of ideas of what happened if you stay in here too long. Let's see. Gondol came back addled. Hulda survived for a while, but she lost her shadow, and as time went on, she faded away. It's like, what the hell? Like, she was no longer solid. Aala began speaking to animals, and she just ran off to live in the forest. And then Thor asked the important question, because they're looking around and they see footprints. He's like, nobody's supposed to be in here. Who are these footprints for? And then he's talking about how something's moving in the shadows, but we learned that it is the shadows themselves attacking them. And it's really kind of interesting because then you even see Thor and Runa's shadows attacking them. And it's just really kind of well done. It's very hard to do that without making the panels seem kind of dark and whatnot, but they do a great job of showing kind of the shading of, like, then being solid shadows going after them, and it's not just a big black smudge of stuff. And then she's like, you're the god of sparkles, fucking sparkle shit, man, do the light. As he then lets Mjolnir ring it, and he pretty much has a contained light orb around it. Alright, then we check in, and we see kind of a mirror that performs kind of similarly to the mirror of the Erased, and we see that, like, Lausa is not scared. She sees what she thinks could potentially be like her future, which that looks pretty cool. That's a nice ass outfit and everything. Alright, I'd be interested to see what she would do in the future. And we don't know if it's the future, who she wants to be, or some kind of trick. We see that Corvus Glaive has been healing because he got fucked up, because he's been like injured on this trip. Sees him holding the gauntlet and being a god, and he believes that it's the future and not some kind of trick. And he's like, alright, I've gotten us this far. The rest is up to you at a big kind of door. And then we're seeing a lot of, like, interestingly enough, goopy melting kind of shit. And the thing is, we see that Runa and Thor are hearing this gentle sound of axe meeting stone drums in the distance. And there's like a voice that's like, what the fuck? We're not alone here. What do we hear? But what does it matter? As we are then shown that Bor is in there, which is kind of weird because the last time I saw Thor accidentally killed Bor. Now, granted, there are multiversal things, resetting timelines and whatnot, because Loki fucked him over and essentially had that done to get him off of the throne of Asgard, then had Balder elevated to the king of Asgard. That's what I remember. So it's like, oh shit. As he's talking about let the fire cleanse them, the ashes of men are but the shadows of life, burn it all. And they're both like, what the fuck? I do love the art of Thor's like, what the fuck kind of face here, where he's like, that echoed my like confusion. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So I do like what we got here. I do feel that it's kind of weird that the story is spread across so many different kind of things. Now, granted, at this point, it's just another extra comic with, like, the death notes and whatnot, but I do feel that I got at least enough in here that I'm like, okay, I understand what's going on, even though I kind of want a little bit more of Runa to get her character better, and I definitely want to see more of what they are able to do with Lausa, Thor's sister, and see what kind of goes on with that. And that, it just really kind of connected with me as, like, an older brother, of being like, yeah, your sibling's in trouble, and it's through no fault of their own, really. I mean, Agent Thanos came in like, I want to find shit connected to Thanos and the Black Infinity Stone, and then you find out that your grandfather that you were supposedly kicked out of Asgard for, as the All-Father at one point, is still alive in some kind of weird kind of place. So it's like, alright, we'll have to see what that kind of explanation is, so I'm looking forward to that and seeing what kind of happens next. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.